welcome to Sunshine for Your Life. I had a friend of mine, she's passed on now, but we were great friends, and she loved to ski. That was her favorite thing to do. All through her life, the one thing that she had always wanted to do was to ski. I worked with her for about 20 years, and that's all she talked about, skiing, skiing, skiing. Every weekend and every vacation during the winter months, she would go and she would find a place where she could ski. And she would be depressed when the summer came because during the summer there was no snow and she couldn't ski anymore. She just could not wait to get the winter here again so that she could ski. Now, once she got older, she had to have surgery, and it was a hip replacement. And the surgery went well, but she could no longer ski. The doctors told her that it would be dangerous for her to ski, and they wanted her to give it up because it was an artificial hip. It could dislodge, it could break, she could get seriously injured. She might even have to have surgery over again. This made her very depressed because she wanted to ski. And then she decided no matter what happened, she was going to ski anyway. No matter what they said, she would be the one that would ski. And every weekend she'd come back and she'd talk about her ski experiences, and I knew she wasn't supposed to be doing it. So finally I confronted her about it, and I said, how could you take the risk of skiing when you know very well that you are at risk and you could get very injured, you could get really hurt, and you might even have to have surgery again? Well, this is what she said to me. I love to ski. I'm going to ski. No one's going to stop me. If I get hurt, they'll just have to operate again. That's all. I will not give up skiing. I will not stop because I love to ski. That was her answer. And I knew just by her stubbornness that that's exactly what she was going to do. Now, there are times when we need to fight through something to do what God wants us to do, but there are other times when we need to listen to reason. And if somebody that is helping us or is important in our lives, especially our medical help, we have to listen to what they say and then pray about making the right decision. And in her case, she really shouldn't have skied, although she got away with it. Her worth as a person was not based on her being able to ski. A lot of times people base their worth on what they can do or what they love to do. And if they can't do it, they feel they're of less worth because they're not doing the thing that they most treasure. And I think that was partly her problem. Your worth is not dependent upon what you do, even though what you do is a reflection of yourself. Just because I like to do something and it's a reflection of me, I don't need to define my personality or my personhood on it. My personhood is defined by something a lot more than what I happen to do or what I happen to like to do. It's based upon my relationship with God. It's based upon what God wants me to do in my following Him. This is the way it is for Christians. So your worth is not dependent on what you can do, even though, as I said before, it's a reflection of who you are. What we end up doing is usually in line with what our beliefs are and what our love is, and somehow that's all interconnected together. No matter what you do, God has a great plan for you. The first verse I'm going to put up on the screen is Jeremiah 29:11, and this is what it says. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. I'm going to read that again. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. What a nice promise that is. It's saying, God is saying, I have something just for you. I have a life planned out for you, and it's one that's going to prosper you. It's not one that's going to hurt you. It's not one that's going to be of harm to you. It's going to prosper you. It's going to give you a hope. It's going to give you a future. And when you say that verse, and you know that verse is true because it's in the Bible and everything in the Bible is true, then you know what that means. God has something special for me, and it's important, and it's special, and it's going to help me, it's not going to harm me, and it's going to give me great joy, and it's going to also lead to a very great future. That is really what that verse means. So this is a nice promise. You may not get everything that you want. If you're a skier, you may not be able to ski every weekend, but at the same time, what does happen to you will be very nice indeed. So what you do with God's help will be the best for you because he has it all planned out. And when you do what he wants you to do and it's all planned out as God only can plan it, you're going to be more productive, you're going to help people more, you're going to be more content and happy, and you're going to accomplish the most in line with what your talents and your abilities are. When God created you and he had you in mind before the foundation of the world, before you were even ever thought of, he knew you. He knew you were going to come. He gave you the gifts he wanted you to have to accomplish the things he wanted you to accomplish in line with the abilities and the talents that he gave you in advance to accomplish those things. So you see, it all fits together in a pattern, nothing that you have to worry about. God will not waste any of your abilities and gifts and your IQ. He will make the best use of what he has created in you. So there's no sense in judging yourself with other people. And there's no sense in judging yourself and saying, well, I'm as good as this person, or I'm not as good as that person, or I have this ability and other people don't have it. It's not a competition. Life is not a competition. It's doing what God has prepared for you to do. And when you do that, then you will be happy indeed because you will be following his will. So you were created to do certain things, and he's going to anoint you to do those things, and with your gifts and your abilities, he's going to work with them. He will bless you. God's plans for you are important. Remember, Jesus is the vine, and you are the branch that is attached to the vine. Now, the next verse I'll put up is John 15:5, that relates to the vine and the branches. This is what it says, John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me, I in him, he will bear much fruit. Let me read that again. I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. And you know, that's the way it is. I would not be able to do figure skating. I would not be able to be a gymnast, nothing like that. But what I do is right for me, because what God has planned for me, he's given me the ability to do. And I can say that would be true for every person that ever lived. If they're a Christian and they follow what God wants them to do, then they will be very, very happy indeed. As long as you are faithful and attached to him, you're going to bear much fruit. That means good things that you do that are going to last, that become a part of your legacy. The verse goes on to say that apart from him, you won't be able to do anything. If you're not attached to God, even if you're a Christian, if you're not paying attention to him and you're not really attached to him, then you won't be able to do anything. What you will do will fail. And I've seen that happen. Remember that God has already given you the abilities that you have. He will use your gifts and opportunities. He will provide those opportunities for you to use and the gifts that he has given you. It all fits together. What you do is going to blend in with what others are doing. Now, my mother was a wonderful crocheter. She crocheted big, big pieces that were hung on walls. It was very, very beautiful. If you looked on the back side of the embroideries, it was a total mess. A glob of color here, a glob of color there, threads sticking out everywhere, knots and everything in abundance. And you see, you weren't seeing the whole thing. You're only seeing the back side of what she did. If you turn it over to the front, they were beautiful, beautiful artistic pieces, cottages surrounded by flowers and surrounded by walking places and trees and birds in the air and everything, just absolutely gorgeous. So if you do what you're supposed to do, then you're going to blend in with everybody else that's also doing what they're supposed to do, and you have a beautiful tapestry. That's the best example I can give of it. If you decide, I'm going to do what I want to do because I want to do do it, and that's all the way it is. I'm going to live in a painted house that's plaid. I'm going to be walking along a beach. I'm going to be doing what I want to do just simply because I want to do it. And it doesn't have any forethought to it except that it satisfies something you want to do. And it doesn't necessarily fit anything for God, to work in you. Then you're just not going to be successful. And you're just going to kind of be lonely and depressed. And it's just not going to work out. I had two friends of mine that were going to Israel. They were going to do a Christian ministry in Israel. But they were titling it a name that Israelis never use. It's a name of God that the Jewish people consider to be so sacred, they won't say it aloud. They can read it, but they won't say it aloud. And they wanted to make a business after those words that Jewish people don't ever say because it's so sacred. So I could predict right then and there that their business was going to be a failure. No one would use the title of the business. No one would talk about the business because to them it would be sacred words that they should not use in any kind of a secular sense. And this was going to be like a business. It would be a ministry, but it would be a business too. So I don't know whatever happened. They quit their jobs and they went to Israel, and I don't know whatever happened. I was unable to keep touch with them. But you have to remember, everything has to be in order the way that God has it. So if you don't do what God wants you to do, then it means that you would lose your reward because you're not doing what he wants you to do, and people who need you would lose out on the help that you would give them. They would lose out because, after all, you're not doing what God wants you to do. You're not ministering to them in the way that they need, and so therefore you're kind of backing out on God, and so therefore you would not get rewarded. So you might ask, could God choose someone else? Well, yes, but it would not be the same thing because we're all unique and no one can really replace another. If you're unique, which you are, and you are supposed to do a certain thing and God has chosen you to do it, no one can quite take your place. You might decide, I'm not going to do this, somebody else can do it. But the person that replaces you isn't you, and so therefore they don't have your unique qualities. They have their own unique qualities, which are important, but not the ones that God wants to use. They're, in a sense, replacements, and they don't quite fit the bill. Because we're all unique, no one can really replace us. So are you afraid of making mistakes? Well, yes, of course. And everybody makes mistakes, but that's okay. God is a living and loving and forgiving God. He knows we're not going to be perfect. He knows we're going to make mistakes. But the point is, if we're doing and trying to do what it is that he wants us to do, he's going to make up for those mistakes. James 1 verse 5, which is the third verse I'm putting up on the screen, says this: if any of you lack wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. So all you have to do is to remember, he will help you and he will give you the wisdom that you need for you to do what you want to do. And therefore, you're not going to lose out. Even if you make a mistake, God's going to give you wisdom and he's going to carry through what you're doing so you don't even have to worry about it. You need to take your rightful place to do the work that God has called you to do. Not to be selfish, not to be domineering, not to say, I'm going to do this no matter what I want because this is what I want to do. None of that. You will be happy and you will be content, and you will carry your job and your ministry through. And this, by the way, becomes your legacy. What is your legacy? It's what you leave behind that you can help other people with. And so I'm going to close it here, and we'll be doing something next time. Please join me then.